Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Every Day is a Story All Its Own podcast. I am your host, creative and storyteller Joey Medea. This is the 23rd episode of Every Day is a Story All Its Own, but making videos on storytelling goes back 4.5 years, I guess now. Well, anyway, welcome. This is, I think, a very important subject. And it's a way to make money. So it's super, super practical. Again, most of these are for creatives, but if you really think about it, they're about anyone who's out there doing gig work, um, anybody who has to cultivate clients, maintain clients, all of this stuff, the networking, the showing up, especially this work for hire. I'll say up front that a lot of creatives are against work for hire. They don't have enough time to do their own stuff, and I totally get that. But all that I can say is, and how I'll demonstrate over the next little less than an hour here, I guess this will take, um, is that I've made a great deal of money at this, and I have really enhanced my career, and I've actually opened up doors that have allowed me to do much more of my own work professionally than maybe I would have otherwise. It's a great way to meet people. It's a great way to get your work out there. Every once in a while, work for hire will end up in a credit, and I will talk about that. But mostly, it is about not getting the credit. Again, I'll say upfront, stick with this if you're skeptical. But I will say, if you want the credit, if you have to have the credit, if you put the creative energy in, your name has to be on it, then maybe this work isn't for you. But I do think that this episode of this podcast will still have some value. So let's do the real quick opening. I'm going to come back. I'm going to dive right in. Welcome. Good evening, everyone. Hey, Tanya, I'm glad you could make it. Tanya's go pick up a friend at the airport in a little bit, but I'm glad she's here at the start as always. Welcome to my friends. I'm streaming this on YouTube, of course, but also on LinkedIn, and that has worked out very well. That's sort of been an experiment the past 5 or 6 weeks. Like I say, it's worked out very well. And as well as Facebook. Now, Facebook has changed their policies. Almost all the live videos older than 30 days are going away. Which has had me rethink some things. And then they are only up once they go brand new live. They're only up for 3 weeks and then they're gone. Hey, Amy Jo, good evening. So let's jump right in. And I want to start with a quote, and it's a quote from a really good movie, and especially in the political environment that we're in, a movie well worth watching by a very, very talented, primarily playwright, theater practitioner. This guy is like Goethe in a lot of ways to me, and that is David Mamet. And he wrote a movie called Wag the Dog. Phenomenal cast. It's Robert De Niro. It's Dustin Hoffman, and maybe quite possibly my favorite role that he's ever done, but I love his work in I Heart Huckabees. Anything that's quirky as he got older, I particularly love. Willie Nelson makes an appearance in this film. Woody Harrelson is terrific, plays this crazy guy. Anyway, Wag the Dog. So Dustin Hoffman's character is patterned on a real life Hollywood producer named Robert Evans. Evans in 1967 and into the early 70s saved Paramount Pictures, but was very much part of the whole renaissance that came with directors like Francis Ford Coppola and The Godfather and all of that. An absolutely fascinating man who wrote 2 books, is on a lot of my lists for writers, actors, producers, directors. The kid stays in the picture about his early life through Paramount and all that. He was very, very close friends with people like Jack Nicholson and Warren Beatty. So that's all very interesting. Dated Ali McGraw for a long time. And then The Fat Lady Sang, which is after he had his stroke and dealing with all of that. So anyhow, from Wag the Dog, what does this have to do with work for hire? So this character played by Dustin Hoffman, this Stanley Motz, is a very, very powerful Hollywood producer. And he is brought in to basically create a narrative to pull focus from a presidential scandal in order that the president can survive through re-election. And of course, this all has to be done hush hush. So there's a fixer, Connie Breen, played by Robert De Niro. I think of people like Karl Rove. I think people like Rahm Emanuel. I think of people like Steve Bannon. Dick Cheney, in a way, I think was a fixer, and a lot of that cabal was all these different guys, Kissinger-esque, all these, but these guys that go out there and make these things happen for these presidents to stay in power, because then they can stay in power, which is the point. So Stanley starts to get cold feet because he's like, this is the greatest thing I've ever produced in my life, and people got to know. So Connie says to him, Stanley, don't do this. You're playing with your life here. And Stanley says, fuck my life. I want the credit. So again, if you absolutely want the credit, I totally get that. Maybe work for hire isn't for you, but stick with it and let's see if I can make a case for you. The same way, to me, that a teacher becomes an ever wiser student by interacting with students just through the act of teaching. And there are quotes that go back to the philosophers of Rome and Greece on this subject. Well, I learn more about the craft and get better engaging with other people's work. I'm a voracious reader. I read anywhere from 10 to 12 books at a time, and I'm learning what they're doing there. Just the act of going through it, of analyzing it, of seeing what doesn't work. Some of the people from Pixar famously said, you got to look at bad stuff because sometimes it could be more instructive than good stuff. Plus, I'm getting paid. And at this point in my career, I'm getting paid very well to help people elevate their work. And that's what the game is here for work for hire, for a creative like myself. You're being paid. This is sort of a working definition that I've come up with, being paid to apply your skills as a story analyst, a script doctor, a writer, a consultant, or an editor to help up level someone's work. You're giving mentorship and advice. I love mentorship, and that's a big part of what this is, especially if you're working with somebody long term. Ghostwriting, fiction, memoir, other non-fictions. Ghostwriting is the work for hire where so much of you goes into it, but you absolutely do not get the credit. And I do have several works out in the world that meet that criteria. Clients can be other writers. That's a good bit of who I work with, but also producers, directors, and all kinds of IP, intellectual property developers who need a hand, who need some help. Someone's come in, they have a great idea, but it needs to be developed by a hand. One of the pieces that I wound up getting credit for because I had put so much work into it, and then these conversations and negotiations happened with agents and producers and all this kind of thing, was because there was a director who really wanted to produce a piece, but it just wasn't there. Loved the idea, loved the concept, loved a great deal of it, but they needed to bring a writer in, and that writer happened to be me. So here's, I break this down into about 7 steps. Work for hire 101. For me, it is about longevity. It is about skill building. It is about not 10,000 hours, but 30,000 hours. As a dramaturgist, as a story analyst, as a ghostwriter, as an editor, as a script doctor, as a consultant, and as a writing mentor and teacher, all of those things come in. Plus my acting and directing skills come in with all of this work too. I've worked on novels, memoirs, plays, audio dramas, screenplays, acting reels. I love to advise on acting reels. It's a subtle art form, like putting together a record album in the old days. The order absolutely matters, and a narrative build is very important. Also trailers, film trailers, documentary trailers, especially narrative and interactive puzzle designs, those kinds of projects, escape rooms I've consulted for. I also specialize in true stories. That's something that happened about 25 years ago. I absolutely love to take true stories and develop them for the stage with people, take their story and develop them for the stage. I've gotten to do that a number of times. And also I do historical fiction, which is also telling true stories. So the way into work hire, really lucrative work hire that is consistent, is to build your reputation and skill sets of foundational practices. And to me, they are the writing skills. They are the editing skills, their story structure, character development, but also the ability to work with a team, even if that team is 2 people, you and your client. there's still this dance, there's still negotiation, there's still compromise, cooperation, and so much communication, which I'll spend quite a bit of time on. Another step is just getting your brand out there. If you decide you want to do this, or you're doing it a little and now you want to do it a lot, get your brand out there. My brand is Every Day is a Story All Its Own. I am a storyteller who works in numerous modes, each mode of which has a different emphasis. Audio drama is on sound, novels, psychological, film, visual, so on and so forth. So get it out there. Advertise as a work for hire creative, and watch my episodes on networking, on showing up. Read my book, Every Day is a Story All Its Own, which is about to get into the hands of some pretty important, powerful people in the industry, which I'm very excited about. It's already been read by a number of people in the industry, several of whom have endorsed the book, but now it's going to more of them. And I just love that. That's happening in a couple of weeks. But anyway, it helps to have numerous credits and success in your target areas. So a proven track record, like anything else in this world. The resume, the CV, the works that you can show people, the works that are out there, samples that you can give them. I'll talk about that in a while. But really, this is about persistence, and it's about patience. It takes a while. I have been doing this for 35 years. Some of my earliest jobs were work for hire, and I managed to get some credits with those as well. Do your social media. Nothing succeeds like success. So when you have a win, put it out there. Sometimes we have NDAs. Sometimes it's not prudent to talk about details, but let people know that you're doing stuff, that you're getting the wins, that you're working, you're accumulating your hours. If you're taking classes, if you're taking seminars, that works. If you're going to festivals and conferences, that works. Just let them know that you're in the game, you're learning, you're building your resume. A big part of this is contracts, verbal and written, that lay out expectations. I mean, for agents with managers, that is absolutely essential that you have the contracts. With almost all of my clients, certainly new clients, I always have a contract, and I'll talk about what goes into those. So let's say you put yourself out there, you've gotten some initial interest. So you're going to go with a video, or you're going to go with a phone call. If at all possible, go face to face with them. Use a video platform rather than the phone. Although my most recent meeting with a prospective client was over the phone, and that was okay too, but it makes it a little harder. Dress up, post a picture on social media, advertising your services in conjunction with the fact that you're about to have a meeting. I'll do that with my microphone here, or just because I'm dressed up, something like that. Like I say, video is ideal. Let them see your workspace. Let them see your eyes and gestures. Let them get a sense of your energy, which is hard to do on the phone. And then really lay out the goals. They're going to pay you. They're going to entrust you with their work. Periods of time, kind of unsupervised, which I'll get to. So you need to create excitement. One of the ways that I found that creates a lot of excitement and gets me a lot of clients is I pitch their story to them. So they've told me something about it. Sometimes it's right in that meeting. So you have to do that on the fly, which is great practice, because you never know when you'll be somewhere and you meet somebody unexpectedly, and they might want to work with you, and they want to know what you have, or they've heard about something maybe that you're working on, and you got to do a pitch on the fly. So it's great practice to do that. Tell them what it's about. Tell them why there's a market for it. Tell them what excites you as a reader, as an actor, as a director, as a writer, what you know about their work. That goes a really long way. It shows that you understand it at its core. That's fundamental. You really have to get to the power plant, to the heartbeat, where a story lives, in order to make sure that you don't make it your story, which so many, too many work for hire people do, or consultants, or people that you bring in and say, hey, what do you think of this? Suddenly they're talking about their ideas instead of your ideas, which isn't good. So even if it's a one-page synopsis, it's a preface, something like that, it's an outline, Get something hopefully ahead of time that will clue you in so you can give it some thought, see how it jives with your skill sets. If it doesn't jive with your skill sets, like I get offers sometimes for technical writing, that is not my thing and I can't really help with that. So I just turn that down from the onset. So keep in mind, you got to think like the client. Finding the right editor, the story analyst, the ghostwriter is a very big deal for the client. But when they find the right one, it's a big relief. And when they start to see the work and how you're helping them shape their work according to their vision and voice, very key. And in about 4 weeks, I think 5 weeks, I have guests the next 4 weeks, really great guests. So be sure to tune in. I'm going to do an episode on vision and voice. They're looking for someone who gets them and gets their work. And I'll tell you that 9 times out of 10, they're much more interested in someone getting their work than getting them. Many people hide behind their work, and I don't mean that in any kind of derogatory way, but the work speaks for them. So it's very important. That's their child. You're the babysitter. You're the English nanny in classical times that spends more time with them maybe than the parent does at times, and you're shaping the child. They want to make sure that the values align, that the work ethic aligns, the philosophies align, the parenting style aligns. So a lot of this is making sure that you vibe, but you can control this. You really can with some practice. And a lot of, I wouldn't say a lot, I would say about 40%, 35% of the people who come to me have been burned and something needs to be undone, which is going to make your job a lot harder because the trust is harder to come by and then the work is going to be damaged and you have to undo some things, get it back to their 0 point and then rebuild from there because they went to friends who meant very well or family who meant very well, but they simply just didn't know what they were doing. They lacked the time, they lacked the expertise. Others call me because they're disappointed because they've hired someone and sometimes spent incredible amounts of money, quite frankly, more even than what I'm charging. And it has just been a terrible experience. The work has come back and it's been completely changed. They've been very difficult to deal with, very unyielding. They insist upon things. And then, like I said, that can often be difficult. I try to keep that in mind. I try to limit some of the billable hours in the beginning to try to get them back to a 0 point. Hopefully they've kept prior drafts. That's great when that happens. Oftentimes it does not. You need to be a cheerleader. That's a big job of being a work for hire person, is to be a cheerleader. Keep them pumped up that their work has value. Applaud what's been done so far. So if they have a first draft, if they have a chapter, if they have an outline, cheer. Let them know that so many people don't even get that far. Keep them pumped up. And then share your marketing expertise, the worth of the project, the audience. I talked about that a little. That's also going to go into your assessment. Like any good market research piece, that needs to be an element, a section. What is it like for them to be a writer? What are their aspirations as creators? What do they want to do? Find that out. Ask who their favorites are. Ask who their inspirations are. I will oftentimes have Amazon up on my screen so I can keyword search. If they go, oh, you know who I love? I really love this, and I'm kind of trying to be that, or it holds its inspiration for that, or no, this is about a very specific place, a very specific incident, a moment in time. If I get hired, I will do some reading. I will spend some money on some materials so that we can talk the same language if I'm not familiar with who their inspirations are. I need to get more familiar with them. I also let them know what I think it's like. So that's that old film pitching Hollywood trick of it's this meets that with this kind of thing. That's also helpful. It situates for them. I've often found that you come to them with, oh, it really reminds me of Jaws. Oh my gosh, I love that movie. Wow, you see that in there? That's amazing to me. That also works to your benefit. I don't want any of this to sound disingenuous, because I will walk away if we are not vibing, if there's nothing there, if I don't think that I can help. I'm certainly not going to take their money just to take their money. I'm certainly not going to tell them there's a market for something if there isn't, or a very small market, or it's a market that takes so much to break into. I will be honest there. I'm honest all the time. This is the authenticity thing that I'm always talking about. Then you want to give them a sense of your past projects. Oftentimes they know it. I have a blog that has all my writing and editorial services. They're advertised other places. A lot of my clients at this point come to me through recommendation. That's wonderful. A good part of the work is done. Probably about a third to half is done when you're recommended by somebody. But give them a sense of that and how your wisdom can be of benefit to them, why you're valuable, why you deserve to get their hard-earned money to help them. Now, once they're excited, then show them how your skill sets can help in really concrete ways. Usually I follow up by sending them some of my best assessments that have worked out the best, that have been really glowing. And of course, I redact any kind of information that will give away what this assessment was for. Again, you can't get the credit. You can't give that away. I don't even say in private conversation, hey, look, I worked with this person, or I worked with this person. Everything's redacted, but the core work is there to show them, of course. Then once you get the job, you're going to work on an assessment. And this is an audition for both of you. It's something that you should get paid for. Absolutely, you're not doing this for free. You're not doing it on spec. But before you start planning some kind of long-term relationship, numerous drafts, whatever it looks like, different stages of development for physical IP like escape rooms, immersive, get that contract to do the initial assessment. It's going to help both of you. This is basically proof of concept that you can help. You're going to spend a lot of time with the work, whatever they have. If it's a full work, it's a full-length screenplay, it's a novel, it's a play, it's a pretty well fleshed out immersive experience design. And you're going to spend quite a time on this, quite a bit of time on this. It's crucial. This is a way to get the long-term contract and ensure a good working relationship all the way throughout the process, and to get hired back again by this person. So I typically write my assessments look like this. And of course they vary depending on the mode and the genre and stuff. I write an overview of the project in 5 or 6 sentences, again reiterating that summation of what the heck this is about, what the prevalent themes are, why it matters, why anybody should spend their time on it, so on and so forth. I write an overview of the project in 5 or 6 seconds. I told you that. And then I do a very detailed analysis. This could be up to 15 to 20 pages of scenes, of chapters, of characters, of themes, of structural issues, pacing, atmosphere, tone, all of these different kinds of things that were taught formally. Writers in school, this is where school really does come into play in this kind of work. And then I do a bulleted list of recommended steps. These go from very general to sometimes very specific. I found it's very useful to work in percentages. So say this chapter needs to be reduced by 25%. This monologue needs to be reduced by 50%. Your act 1 totally drags. You take too much time to get to act 3. You need to shave act 2 by. Those of you who know the 3-act model, most writers get bogged down in the second act. It's long, it's unwieldy, the obstacles, introduction of new characters, pacing, then building that pace, pulling it out of act 1, really getting it developed, getting it on the road, building momentum, so that you hit act 3 at a very good, very strong pace. So this is the technical that I work on. I will also engage in certain models, the 3-act model, other structural models that I really believe work. and I will send them that. Sometimes I won't. It depends on their feeling. People who are really against those kinds of things, I use those tools, but I leave them in my toolbox. If they're open to them, if they're interested in them, then I include those worksheets with my assessment. So yeah, so I lost my place here for just a second, and I apologize for that. So I deliver the assessment. This usually takes 2 to 3 weeks to get this assessment just right. Um, I also recommend the work that we'll be doing. What do I think this will look like? How often do we need to meet? What do I really want to do? What's very much on them next steps before we re-engage? All of that kind of thing. I have one client who was actually very famous back in the day, but I did a lot of ghostwriting, a lot of developmental work, which I got zero credit for, not even an acknowledgement on the acknowledgement page. That was fine. I was well paid. It was an amazing experience. But I recommended Robert Evans' two memoirs to him early on as I was listening to him, getting an idea. I said, you really should engage with these. And he would walk every morning. He was an older man, and walking for his exercise was very important to him. He listened to the two books, and it had a profound effect on his work, and always gave us a common ground that we could get to if we were struggling. We could say, well, Evans did it this way, or remember in the Evans book when he says, or this is, he handled this, or something came out of that. Evans opened up with something that came out of nowhere, and it wasn't what you were expecting at all. It was so brilliant. And I had the idea for him to do that with his book, to really get it off, shot out of a cannon. And it worked out extremely well. It was one of my first contributions that really cemented the relationship. So, engaging, like I said, with him early on in that way, with that understanding to go, here's some things that will help you with your work that you're not paying me for, you're doing on your own time, gave him confidence. It helped him to understand his strengths as a storyteller, which were considerable. But a verbal storyteller, a speech maker, someone who had stumped for politicians, who almost ran for governor. I mean, very big, high level stuff in rooms with very important people, very top names. How do you translate that to the page beyond, writing a speech? So that was a big part of our process. So typically with this 15 to 20 page assessment, screenplays, plays, novels, so on and so forth, the big assessment meeting, this important assessment meeting for which you will also get paid billable hours for the meetings, will take about 2 hours. Really go through it. I encourage them to spend as much time as they need to with it. Typically, after a couple of days, they just want to talk about it and they want to get going. They want to move on to the next steps. This is also a way for you, and it's the same thing that I always tell actors. Remember, when you're auditioning for a part, you're also auditioning those people. If you're going to be in a film set, you're going to be on for hours and hours and hours. If you don't like the director's mode of working, their tone, way they treat people around them, walk away. So it's an audition. If you're going to continue, if it's not a good fit, don't force it. You made a little bit of money, you made a contribution, give them advice about where else they can go, and leave it at that, quite frankly. Then the next part, bill for the assessment, then, and move on. That's it. The relationship is everything. If you don't have that trusting relationship, you're going to have a really hard time. They're going to fight you tooth and nail. To me, you're not making the money authentically, and it just leaves a bad taste in my mouth. So I don't like to do it. So next section is really setting up for success in this moving forward, setting deadlines and boundaries. How many drafts are we thinking about? What is that process going to look like? When am I going to take things? When are they going to take things? When I had a recent experience that's working out very well, and big things could happen from it. We were co-writing. So that whole process That still work for hire at that point. I was still brought in as a hired gun. Agreement was made because of some script doctoring, story analyst work that I had done prior for this person, that my name was going to be on it. But the relationship was still work for hire. This was still their baby. And that was very interesting about how much time they will take, how much time I will take. When it comes back to me, how far do I go? Without talking about it first, or all of those different kinds of things. So be clear about your process, particularly what it is, and I'll give you some advice on these things, the what and how of things. Deadlines for samples. Deadlines are great. They're signposts where you could say goodbye to each other at any point in that process. So when you're making your contract, set it in segments. What you're going to get paid for this stage, that stage, so on and so forth. And as you get further into it, if you're doing just some high level editing, or you're just doing some polishing, you shouldn't be charging what you're charging for real outline and idea develop and mentorship or ghostwriting, all of those kinds of things. So keep that in mind, what this falls under, or will start to change. You can go to Joey Medea Storyteller at blogspot.com, look at my writing and editorial services, and see how I have things broken down. That can be your template. It works very well for me. A big part of this work is boundaries. I have an exclamation point and I have it in bold. Boundaries. Your skills are specific. They have come hard work. Your time is valuable beyond the money that you are charging. A lot of clients, this is a really big one. So if you're taking notes, write this down in boldface or highlight it, circle it, do whatever you need to do, write it in a different color. A lot of clients are looking for one-stop shopping. I get this a lot. I didn't mention it, but some of my work for hire is I do PhD and master's dissertations. I know all the style books from being in academic editing for almost 3 decades, and they are sometimes the most difficult clients because they want you to do everything. Suddenly you're automating the table of contents, and you're reformatting figures, and you're creating tables, or because you see something that they need to do that's missing or isn't quite style or needs to be enhanced, and suddenly, oh well, can't you just do that? No, that is not my expertise. And even if it is something that I know how to do, it's going to take me so much time. So it is certainly not included in the price, the per page price, or hourly. I give them a choice that I'm giving them. So the best way out of that is just give them a really high number. Now, every once in a while, they're desperate and they seem to have a budget. And so they'll agree. You're in it, but at least you're getting paid very, very well. But oftentimes, if you go, well, no, I'm going to have to charge you a premium rate for that, and it's going to take me extra time because I'm not sure how I do it, and this is the number. Sometimes I'll go, no, I'll find somebody else to do it. Thank you. And that works out the best for everyone. So really watch that, especially with the tech stuff. They're going to try to, if you're editing the novel, no, you're not going to design their cover for them. But if you know good cover designers, spread the wealth. Make a recommendation there. How to communicate with you and when. This becomes really important, especially on long-term projects. Set weekly meetings. When you're doing your work, you do not want to be bothered. You do not want to be intruded upon any more than you would go to them when you hand it back to them and go, are you ready for me yet? When are you bringing me back? Not good. Not good at all. Even if they're just 5-minute check-ins, and I've done that, or once a week, it's 5 minutes, 10 minutes. Hey, what the heck's going on in your life? How's everything going? Can I be of help? Good to see you. I'll see you again next week. You can submit samples as you go. That's a good thing to do. Make sure, especially if you're doing really heavy work, ghostwriting, you're doing really, really heavy editing, you're creating outlines and things, send that stuff often to make sure you're on the right track. That's fair to both of you. It's especially fair to them. No sending revisions or brainstorms at 2:00 in the morning. This happens. And 2:00, 3:00 in the morning, they figure you're asleep. They're up all night churning. So I make them agree, my clients, and it's in the contract, that when I have the work, they cannot make any changes to it at all. They can't even call me with suggestions. They'll hold for our next meeting. They can see what I've done. Maybe I've come to the same place that they were at anyway. Works out great for both of you. But I have learned this. There's nothing like getting 15 pages into a novel and suddenly you wake up one morning. It's like, oh, here, I rewrote that chapter. You're charging them for money that you've already done. And if you're okay with that, that's fine. But I'll tell you, it gets annoying. And it gets very, very frustrating. So let's continue on this frame. Beyond boundaries are basic good practices. Keep the lines of communication open. I've talked about that. A key part of all of this is balancing and honoring the client's vision and applying your narrative technical craft to elevate the work. This is where I think really good script doctors, story analysts, ghostwriters, editors, especially developmental editors, really shine. My name is on lots and lots and lots and lots of stuff that people can read and learn about my work and my vision and voice and all that kind of good stuff that I've earned and all the things I've created. This is not your project. So you're always in the position of giving in. Now, when you get to the industry, the screenwriting, it can be horrific. It's the same thing. You are getting paid. Now, yeah, maybe your name is on it, but it takes a village. So when I see these screenwriters just being so anguished, you're getting a check, you're creating other stuff, go off and do other things. I love my novels because those are my thing, unanswerable to just about nobody except some trusted beta readers. And then, of course, the audience after it's already in print, right? By that time. So just remember that it is not your work. If you can remember that you are getting paid to perform a service, then this entire process gets easier. And the high level skill is to match the client's voice with your own to fill necessary gaps, to provide bridges when scenes, paragraphs, etc. are moved, when the characters aren't quite shining, going back to the core of who that character is and building not who you think they should be or want them to be. If you're going to do ghostwriting, and this is a super kind of specialty thing that, like I said, I've gotten a chance to do numerous times, speak with them at length, long conversations. And if they don't want to pay for it, okay, so you're giving up a little on the front end, but it's going to make the back end much better. Speak with them in length. Learn their vocabulary. I'll note down words that they say over and over again. The same way I'm creating Cyrus Avery now for my Route 66 Centennial Tour, which I gave a little preview for in Tulsa a couple weekends ago. I guess it's coming up 2 weeks on Sunday. Hard to believe already. And when I read his speeches, when I read his letters, I pull out recurring words. You can do word clouds. You know what I mean? There are programs out there, free programs. I have one where you input all these words and then it'll make it. Keep that in front of you. That's a great thing to do. Use the technology of this time to help you. Their vocabulary, their syntax, all of that kind of thing. My background as an actor and also as a Chautauquan, as a historical education performer, like what I'm working on for Cy Avery, this helps immensely, all of this kind of thing. Another big thing is pick your battles. Let things go. Advise and inform. And if it's not going anywhere, find another way around or simply let it go. And again, this seems to be the art and craft and necessity in the screenwriter's room, which I'm getting closer and closer to all the time at a new level here. Some big things coming up in a couple weeks. So negotiation, here's a really good piece of advice for you. I've used this with my kids, with my students, mentees, team members. Leadership expert Clint Seidel, Sidle, calls it the 90-10 rule. 90% of the time, it's open to negotiation, your willingness to go their way. 10% of the time, you reserve to go, this is the way that it needs to be, and this is how we're doing it. It's probably a 95-5 rule with work for hire gigs. And if the trust is there. But it's a good general rule of thumb there. All right. As I'm moving quickly through this, which is great, what I call the 3 C's: contracts, compensation, and credit. The contract should have the expectations, the timelines, the responsibilities, the costs all spelled out, and it should encapsulate the second and third C's: compensation and credit. Again, I have a tiered payment schedule. I don't just get a flat rate for no matter what I do. Again, I encourage you to go to joeymediastoryteller.blogspot.com. And the very first blog there is my writing and editorial services layout. Go ahead and look at that, use that. Maybe you're not ready to charge those numbers. It took me a while to get to them, 25, 30 years. Keep that in mind. But it'll be a good guide for you. Just brushing up text, doing a quick advisement, doing a brief assessment is low end. Ghostwriting is the most expensive. If you can do per page, that's a good way to go because they know exactly what they're getting up front. So you'll see that on my worksheet. But if it's hourly, then make sure they know what they're getting for those hours and how those hours are being billed, how they're being accounted for. I ask for a portion of the payment up front when agents and managers insist that I do so, which is almost every time. So the bigger the job, the more who's putting it together says, and the first thing they need to do is send you a bunch of money. So, okay, I'll do that. Otherwise, if it's somebody I've known for a long time or it's someone that, I'm charging them a very reasonable rate and all that, I will not ask for money up front. You'll make your own judgment about that. It is not unreasonable to ask for a down payment at all. And some people think I'm foolish for not always doing it. But knock on glass, which is what my desk is, glass, knock on wood. For the radio crowd on Earth, I'm knocking on this old skull of mine. There's nothing wrong with doing that. Let them know how often you get paid. So different stages, you could get a chunk of money. That's a good way to go as well. Credit. Most likely in this kind of work, there's going to be no credit at all. And you need to say that your name will appear on it nowhere because a meeting I had a couple of weeks ago with someone for their novel, they were like, okay, you're going to do all this work. Your name isn't going to be on my book. Is it? No, absolutely not. It is not. If they want, you can sign a non-disclosure agreement. If that makes them feel better, why not? If you work in this business, you're going to sign NDAs. When I work with actors, getting them prepared for TV and high-level film stuff, I will sometimes have to sign an NDA because I'm looking at a script that is nowhere near going public. So I do that. That's fine. If a project finds success, you can talk in generalities on your resume, in your advertising. For the longest time, I simply said, because it was important and it was high level, that I consulted for a top 3 luxury car maker. And I left it at that for the longest time. And then slowly with certain clients and in other ways, I will talk more openly about exactly who that client was because we didn't have an NDA, but it was a consulting job that was very time consuming. And so the benefits are the money, the benefits are the experience, everything that you're going to learn, the networking that you're building, all of that kind of stuff. But also it will broaden your network and it should sometimes lead to your own work. Because the publisher wants to know how come suddenly this novelist's work elevated so much, so on and so forth. I've gotten a lot of jobs, even doing the book reviews, which are not work for hire. I never, ever get paid for my book reviews, and I am totally against that. I have gotten proofing and editing jobs because I'll go to the writer or the publisher and go, this book is riddled with typos, or it would be so much better if you use present tense or active voice instead of passive voice, so on and so forth. And they will hire me actually to go in after they paid somebody else. So there is another one where you're mopping, cleaning up somebody else's work through your expertise. And I have gotten some co-writing credits, and they're out there on social media and all that. And those things are in process. And I remain hopeful that they're going to lead to some pretty awesome things. So that is it. That's what I have for you. There's no reason to drag it out. So there you go. The next 4 weeks, I have guests who are building digital communities, and a composer, an actor, who has a really, really cool resume. I'm enjoying showing actors reels. It's a reel that I consulted, gave some feedback on, and some other people. Then I'm going to do vision and voice, and then we'll come back with even more guests. So thank you. This transition to the Everyday is a Story All Its brand has been wonderful. I've been enjoying it. I've met a lot of new audience members. Some, of course, have gone away because the material has changed, and that's fine too. That's the ebb and flow of what we do. So I'm going to send you out Knight Berman Jr., the composer that I mentioned. We worked on many projects together. He'll be on in several weeks. We have an artistic director from Arch Judaica, a Jewish history and theater company, nonprofit theater company. They're doing a fundraiser right now. If Jewish stories are very important to you and keeping the tradition alive, go to my Facebook page, click on it, make a donation to them. I'm on the advisory board. Otherwise, Knight wrote the music for this, for a musical about bullying that we did, and I will see you next week.